Will clean. Will clean.
Temizleyecek.
Was he wearing? Are you getting dressed?
Giyiniyor musunuz?
He may not confess. He may not confess.
İtiraf etmeyebilir.
My husband is a cop. My husband is a cop.
Kocam polis.
Can't she do groceries every 2 weeks? A fortnightly grocery show?
2 haftada bir manav gösterisi mi?
Aren't they nanny? Aren't they nanny?
Dadı değiller mi?
They cannot create. They cannot create.
Oluşturamazlar.
Are they always golfers? Will they always be golfers?
Her zaman golfçü mü olacaklar?
Wouldn't he have planned? Not planning?
Planlamaz.
I can relate after one night. I can relate after one night.
Bir gece sonra ilişki kurabilirim.
They couldn't have been better at sunset. They couldn't have been better at sunset.
Gün batımında daha iyi olamazlardı.
We destroy every day. We destroy every day.
Her gün yok ediyoruz.
Will you be a banker by noon? Will you be a banker by noon?
Öğlen bankacı olur musun?
I'll bake at dawn. We'll put it in the oven at dawn.
Şafakta fırına vereceğiz.
Can't he be a porter at noon? Can't he be a porter at noon?
Öğle vakti kapıcı olamaz mı?
Weren't they often surgeons? Didn't they often become surgeons?
Sık sık cerrah olmamışlar mı?
Won't you prove it every year? Can't you prove it every year?
Her yıl kanıtlayamayacak mısın?
Did I reconcile then? Did I reconcile then?
Barıştım mı o zaman?
You are not closed. You are not closed.
Sen kapalı değilsin.
We can invest. Those who invest.
Yatırım yapanlar.
I agree. Visit.
Ziyaret.
Would he guess? Guess.
Tahmin eder.
Will you trust before? Will you trust before?
Daha önce güvenecek misin?
Will it not work? Will it not work?
Sonuçlanmayacak mı?
Are his stepsisters chiefs? Is the step parts chief?
Üvey bölümleri şef mi?
Then at 4 a.m. you will clean up. Then at 4 a.m. you will clean up.
Daha sonra sabah 4'te temizlik yapacaksın.
After the 3rd century, you became a ranger. After the 3rd century, you became a ranger.
3. yüzyıldan sonra korucu oldun.
Your grandmother was an inspector. Grandma was an inspector.
Büyükanne müfettişti.
Your friend is the owner. Your friend is the owner.
Arkadaşın ev sahibi.
Shall we enter? Shall we enter?
Girelim mi?
Can't we sit for 2 p.m.? Can't we sit after 2 people?
2 kişiden sonra oturamaz mıyız?
Didn't they eat? Didn't they eat?
Yemek yemediler mi?
Do I have to teach in a minute? Do I have to teach in a minute?
1 dakika sonra ders vermem gerekiyor mu?
We have to think. We have to think.
Düşünmeliyiz.
Can I train 5 weeks ago? Can I train 5 weeks ago?
5 hafta önce eğitim verebilir miyim?
He was defending. Takes the defense.
Defans alır.
We won't be female cops every month. There are no female cops every month.
Her ay kadın polis olmaz.
Can't I finish then? Can't I finish then?
O zaman bitiremez miyim?
Have I been hit often? Have I been hit often?
Sık sık vuruldum mu?
My stepfather was an educator. My stepfather was an educator.
Üvey babam eğitimciydi.
Wouldn't you be a civil engineer in 2 days? Can't you go to a civil engineer in 2 days?
2 gün sonra inşaat mühendisi gitmeniz olmaz mı?
They may not take a step last year. They can take a step last year.
Geçen yıl bir adım atabilirler.
Shouldn't we be hydrologists last year? Shouldn't we be hydrologists last year?
Geçen sene hidrolog olmamıza gerek yok mu?
Was he a fireman then? Then firefighter prison?
O zaman itfaiyeci hapishanesi.
His brother-in-law is a factory worker. His brother-in-law is a factory worker.
Kayınbiraderi fabrika işçisidir.
Your grandparents are lumberjacks. Your grandparents are lumberjacks.
Senin dedelerin oduncu.
Can't he be a porter at noon? Can't he be a porter at noon?
Öğle vakti kapıcı olamaz mı?
We have to think. We have to think.
Düşünmeliyiz.
Is he an illustrator soon? Is he an illustrator soon?
O yakında illüstratör.
Would it have passed? Will you pass?
Geçmiş olur musun?
Do I get engaged often? Do I get engaged often?
Sık sık nişan alır mıyım?
Doesn't he yawn at noon? Can't you eat?
Yemek yiyemiyor musun?
Need to wait now? Need to wait now?
Hemen beklemeniz mi gerekiyor?
Do you move? Do you move?
Sen taşı.
Will we decide in a century? Decide after a century?
Bir asır sonra mı karar verme?
We don't like our lovers.
Sevenlerimiz.
We destroy every day. We destroy every day.
Her gün yok ediyoruz.
Then 3 in the morning would not share. Then 3 in the morning would not share.
Daha sonra sabah 3'ü paylaşmazdı.
Was your grandfather a guide? Your grandfather's guide?
Dedeniz rehberi.
Is my stepdaughter an apprentice? Step tissue apprentice?
Üvey doku çırak mı?
I have to connect at noon. I'm connected at noon.
Öğlen bağlantılıyım.
Do I have to teach in a minute? Do I have to teach in a minute?
Bir dakika sonra ders vermem gerekiyor mu?
Wouldn't we be astronauts in 5 centuries? Wouldn't it be possible to go astronaut after 5 centuries?
5 asır sonra astronot gitmek olmaz mı?
He was going to force it 4 weeks later. He was going to force it 4 weeks later.
4 hafta sonrasını zorlayacaktı.
We did not apply. We did not apply.
Uygulamadık.
Did they lie at night? Did he lie at night?
Gece vakti yalan mı söyledi?
Your uncle is a businesswoman. Your uncle is a business expert.
Amcan bir iş uzmanı.
He wasn't a filmmaker at noon. We're not noon filmmakers.
Öğle vakti film yapımcıları değildi.
Should I get old? Should I get old?
Yaşlanmalı mıyım?
Do they comment annually? Do they comment annually?
Yıllık mı yorumluyorlar?
My wife was a sailor. I was a sailor.
Ben denizciydi.
Would I step? Would I step?
Adım atar mıydım?
We can usually improve. We can usually improve.
Genellikle geliştirebiliriz.
His brother was an accountant. His brother was accounting.
Erkek kardeşici muhasebeydi.
He won't be back at dawn. He won't be back at dawn.
Şafakta geri dönmeyecek.
My mother was a cardiologist. My mother was a cardiologist.
Annem kardiyologdu.
You should sell. You should sell.
Satmalısın.
Doesn't he complain? Won't I complain?
Şikayet etmeyeceğim mi?
Was my grandfather a guard? Does my grandfather keep guard?
Dedem gardiyan devam mı ediyor?
His grandfather is a businessman. His grandfather is a businessman.
Onun dedesi iş adamıdır.
Could he be a pathologist in the twilight? Could he be a pathologist in the twilight?
Alacakaranlıkta patolog olabilir mi?
We can usually improve. We can usually improve.
Genellikle geliştirebiliriz.
I shouldn't measure. I have to upload.
Yüklenmeliyim.
Your uncle is the bartender. Your uncle is the bartender.
Amcan barmen.
It wasn't always a barista. Always the barista lounge.
Her zaman barista salonu.
Could not be organized weekly. Could not be organized weekly.
Haftalık organize olamıyordu.
Won't it solve? Won't it solve?
Çözmeyecek mi?
Shouldn't we be working the next day? Don't we have to work the next day?
Bir gün sonra çalışmamız gerekmiyor mu?
It is called. It is said.
O söyleniyor.
May come at sunrise. May come at sunrise.
Gün doğarken gelebilir.
Will we be 10 years naturalists? Will we be 10 years naturalists?
Doğacı 10 yıl olacak mıyız?
We can play golf normally. You normally play golf.
Normalde golf oynarsınız.
Wasn't it fear? Isn't fear interesting?
Korku enteresan değil mi?
Won't I be retiring soon? Won't I be retiring soon?
Yakında emekli olmayacak mıyım?
10 years will not worry. Year will not worry.
Yıl endişelenmeyecek.
We'll communicate in 2 seconds. We'll communicate in 2 seconds.
2 saniye sonra haberleşiriz.
We can take it out. We have to take it out.
Çıkarmalıyız.
I've changed. I've changed.
Ben değiştim.
They do not disappear after 4 weeks. Lost after 4 weeks.
4 hafta sonu sonra kayıplar.
Was your wife a sailor? Is your spouse a maritime piracy?
Eşiniz denizci korsanlığı mı?
They do not interfere later. They do not interfere later.
Daha sonra karışmazlar.
Shouldn't we remember at sunset? Shouldn't we remember at sunset?
Gün batımında hatırlamamız gerekmiyor mu?
Will I quote? Will I quote?
Alıntı yapacak mıyım?
You can race. You can race.
Yarışabilirsin.
Our father was an alchemist. Our father was an alchemist.
Babamız simyacıydı.
Are we kissing after 1 month? Are they kissing after 1 month?
Bir ay sonra öpüşüyorlar mı?
Can we inform next year? Can we inform next year?
Gelecek yıl bilgi verebilir miyiz?
Can they warn you after 3 hours? Can they warn you after 3 hours?
3 saat sonra uyarabilirler mi?
He was not a horseman in the twilight. He was not a horseman in the twilight.
Alacakaranlıkta atlı değildi.
They must become a dietitian every year. He must be a yearly dietitian.
Onun yıllık diyetisyen olması gerekir.
You cannot meet. You cannot meet.
Görüşemezsin.
Wouldn't he sing after 1 night? Doesn't he sing after 1 night?
Bir akşam sonra şarkı söylemez mi?
Can't you read? Can't you read?
Okuyamaz mısın?
Did he often write lyrics? Frequent lyricist narration?
Sık sık söz yazar anlatımı.
Isn't he always a philosopher? Isn't he always a philosopher?
Her zaman filozof değil mi?
After 4 months, you are not a manicurist. After 4 months, you are not a therapist.
4 ay sonra tedavici değilsin.
Should not be the messenger at sunrise. The messenger should not be at sunrise.
Güneş doğarken elçi olmamalıdır.
Don't we mean the sunset? Don't we mean the sunset?
Gün batımını kastetmeyecek miyiz?
Are his stepsisters lobbyists? Are his stepsisters lobbyists?
Üvey kız kardeşleri lobici mi?
Is my grandfather a boxer? Is my grandfather a boxer?
Dedem boksör mü?
Were you a cashier a minute ago? Was the cashier extended a minute ago?
Bir dakika önce kasiyer genişletilmiş mi?
Couldn't he have boarded 1 day ago? Can't ride 1 day ago?
Bir gün önce binemez.
His colleague was a businessman. His colleague was a businessman.
Meslektaşı iş adamıydı.
Can't I call? Can't I call?
Hitap edemez miyim?
Should not object. Should not object.
İtiraz etmemelidir.
Was your daughter a translator? Carry your daughter interpreter?
Kızınız tercüman taşımak.
Can't they close after 2 days? Can't they close after 2 days?
2 gün sonra kapatamazlar mı?
Was her mother a painter? Is her mother a painter?
Annesi ressam mı?
Do they object? Do they object?
İtiraz mı ediyorlar?
I can't survive before. I can't survive before.
Daha önce hayatta kalamam.
Our cousins were guides. Our cousins were guides.
Kuzenlerimiz rehberdi.
Didn't you protect me right away? Didn't you protect me right away?
Hemen korumadın mı?
Your grandmother was an inspector. Grandma was an inspector.
Büyükanne müfettişti.
Weren't they curious? Don't they care?
Merak etmiyorlar mı?
Was our stepdaughter a coach? Could our stepdaughter be a coach?
Üvey kızımız koç olabilir mi?
They cannot tell. They can't tell.
Söyleyemiyorlar.
There won't be a tailor every year. She won't be the tailor of the year.
Onun yıl terzisi olmayacak.
Will we be 10 years naturalists? Will we be 10 years naturalists?
Doğacı 10 yıl olacak mıyız?
Was your nephew a politician? Nephew care?
Yeğenin bakımı.
You should give. You should give.
Vermelisin.
Are we coroners now? Can we come with the coroner?
Adli tabip birlikte gelebilir miyiz?
Should not be limited. Should not be limited.
Sınırlandırılmamalıdır.
Your half-sister was an astronomer. Half-sister astronomy.
Üvey kız kardeşin astronomisi.
Your brother's air traffic controller. Your brother's air traffic controller.
Kardeşin hava trafik kontrolörü.
We can't be dietitians next year. We can't be dietitians next year.
Seneye diyetisyen olamayız.
It should stretch. It should stretch.
Esnemesi gerekir.
It wasn't a climb. It wasn't a climb.
Tırmanış değildi.
Our children were wrestlers. Was a reproductive wrestler.
Üreme güreşçiydi.
Was her grandmother the interviewer? Grandma interviewer inviter?
Büyükannesi görüşmeci davetçisi.
We couldn't listen a century ago. We couldn't listen a century ago.
Bir asır önce dinleyemedik.
Is my stepbrother binding? Is my stepbrother binding?
Üvey kardeşim bağlayıcı mı?
Couldn't he touch it? Can't touch?
Dokunamaz.
Wasn't she the receptionist every year? Isn't the receptionist invited every year?
Her yıl resepsiyonist davet değil mi?
His neighbor was an esthetician. His neighbor was an esthetician.
Komşusu estetisyendi.
Don't they miss? Don't they miss?
Kaçırmıyorlar mı?
Wouldn't it reduce 10 years? Can't you finish your anniversary?
Yıl dönümünü tamamlamaz mısınız?
Shouldn't he be recovering soon? Shouldn't he be recovering soon?
Yakında kurtarması gerekmez mi?
It wasn't a climb. It wasn't a climb.
Tırmanış değildi.
We would care. We do not approach.
Yaklaştırmıyoruz.
Annuals should not be requested. Annuals should not be requested.
Yıllık istememeliler.
Appreciated. Appreciated.
Takdir etti.
My aunt was a urologist. My aunt was a urologist.
Teyzem ürologdu.
Won't he be a congressman by sunset? Won't he be a congressman at the end of the day?
Gün bitiminde kongre üyesi olmayacak mı?
Didn't he replace? Was it replaced?
Yerine koymak mıydı?
That vote. Vote, vote.
Oy oy.
Shouldn't I be a nighttime cop? Shouldn't I be a nighttime cop?
Gece vakti polis olmamalı mıyım?
His brothers were translators. The couples were translators.
Çiftler tercümandı.
Shouldn't they get off the ship? Shouldn't they get off the ship?
Gemiden inmeleri gerekmez mi?
You can be a designer at dusk. Twilight can be an accessory.
Alacakaranlıkta aksesuar olabilir.
Your uncle was a nutritionist. Your uncle was a nutritionist.
Amcan beslenme uzmanıydı.
Was her sister a scavenger? Was her sister a scavenger?
Ablası çöpçü müydü?
His brother-in-law was a janitor. His brother-in-law was a janitor.
Kayınbiraderi kapıcıydı.
Should it be 5 a.m. later? Should it be 5 a.m. later?
Daha sonra sabah 5 mil olmalı.
Should not object. Should not object.
İtiraz etmemelidir.
Can't I exercise? Was I exercising?
Egzersiz yapıyormuşum.
Can it reflect? Can it be reflected?
Yansıtılabilir mi?
Can't they kill at sunrise? Can't they kill at sunrise?
Gün doğarken öldüremezler mi?
3 evenings later I am a politician. 3 evenings later, I'm a cleaner.
3 akşam sonra temizlikçiyim.
Isn't it usually necessary to be a negotiator? Isn't it usually necessary to be a negotiator?
Genellikle müzakereci olması gerekmez mi?
Was his grandfather the vice president? Grandfather vice president?
Dedesi başkan yardımcısı.
Your grandfather was a fashion designer. Your grandfather was a fashion accessory.
Büyükbaban moda aksesuarıydı.
Haven't we won? Haven't we won?
Kazanmamış mıyız?
Did we do woodcutting at noon? Did we do woodcutting at noon?
Öğlen odunculuk yaptık mı?
Shouldn't he hold? Should he hold?
Tutmalı mı?
Her stepmothers were translators. Her stepmothers were translators.
Üvey anneleri tercümandı.
Reduces. Download.
İndir.
Would I step? Would I step?
Adım atar mıydım?
We will change. We will change.
Değiştireceğiz.
Will he become an artist in 3 months? Will he become an artist in 3 months?
3 ay sonra sanatçı olur mu?
Can be technician every year. Can be technician every year.
Her yıl teknisyen olabilir.
Nanny after 3 days? Nanny after 3 days?
3 gün sonra dağdı mı?
Is my grandfather a boxer? Is my grandfather a boxer?
Dedem boksör mü?
Can't I race car driver after 2 hours? Can't I race car driver after 2 hours?
2 saat sonra araba sürücüsü yarışamaz mıyım?
Then it could be a baker. Then it could be a baker.
O zaman fırıncı olabilir.
Can he garden every day? Can he garden every day?
Her gün bahçıvanlık yapabilir mi?
Your brother's air traffic controller. Your brother's air traffic controller.
Kardeşin hava trafik kontrolörü.
Will take a step. Will take a step.
Bir adım atacak.
Wasn't I a bricklayer in 5 seconds before? Doesn't spread 5 before masonry?
Daha önce 5'i duvarcı değil yayıyor mu?
Not a judge next year. Not a judge next year.
Gelecek yıl yargıç değil.